guys, it's Jessica from Peace Love Books, and today I'm finally here with my top books of 2024. I've had a few people ask where my video was, but I count every book until December 31st in my top books of the year. So I was actually in the middle of one that I thought could have been a top of the year. It's Keeping 13 by Chloe Walsh. I've not finished it, so that's gonna be a 2025 book, but I was trying, okay? I had to work a little bit more than I thought yesterday, and time got away from me, and then I had to catch up on all my Goodreads reviews because I hadn't written or logged like 50 books last year. So I spent a few hours yesterday doing that while we watched Twisters, and it was a great New Year's Eve. But I'm here with my top books. So to tell you my stats, I officially read 232 books. That does not include beta reads, and that does not include reading for content because I do work as a romance author assistant. So I have read and reread a lot of their books throughout the year, and that does not count for this video because I am just counting books that I can log on to Goodreads. So according to Goodreads, I read 232. Probably overall read over 250 if I count my beta reads and how many times I had to reread certain books, but I am happy with that number. I think it's the lowest I've read in quite a while, but I am very busy. So I'm happy with the number, and I have 10 honorable mentions and I have a top 12. So these are like my top 22. They are not going to be in order aside from honorable mention and top 12. So if you can guess my top books, let me know in the comments down below before we get started. I will say my opinion changes like every other day. So this was my top according to me on December 31st. If I made this video next week, the list would be different. It's just whatever I'm in the mood for. Also, I might have like raved about books as I read them and kind of like got less excited the farther off I am from reading them, but also I could have like really enjoyed a book, but it really stuck with me more than I thought it would, so that's why it's on this list. So you might be like, you haven't really talked about that, or I thought you loved this book's not on the list, and that's because like, I don't know. My moods change. That's all I can say. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started on my honorable mentions. We're not gonna spend too much time on these. I'll just tell you a little bit about them. Obviously, all of these are 5 stars. So the first one we have is Skies Over Caledonia by Samantha Young. Love this. It's a marriage of convenience, grumpy farmer, and a pretty wealthy heroine with not that great of a past, and they have to get married. She wants to stay in Scotland to be with her sister. So good. Then we have one that really surprised me, and that is Close Knit by Kelsey Denise Stone. This is a knitting influencer and a soccer player. 2 of my like all-time favorite things. So obviously I love this. Super emotional, really delved into mental health a lot, and it takes place in London. I love this so much. Then one that I think I see on so many people's lists is Funny Story by Emily Henry. This one are 2 characters. Both were dating people / engaged, and they cheated on them with each other, so then they decide to move in together because they really have nowhere else to go. And the heroine's a librarian. He decides to show her how great their town is because she wants to move because she was only there for her fiance, and they fall in love, and it is so freaking good. I love Emily Henry, quickly a favorite author of mine. I have another book of hers on this list. Then I do have a small town romance. We have A Rope the Moon by Ava Hunter. This is a second chance romance, and the heroine had gone off to live like her dreams of having a bakery, but she had a very abusive partner and she is pregnant. So she runs back home, and the hero is the first one to save her, and she was stranded hours outside of town and called her dad to help, and he's the one who came running. It is so freaking good. I love Ava Hunter. The series is amazing. Book 3 is going to come out soon. If you haven't yet, check out the Runaway Ranch series. We have The Dixon Rule by Elle Kennedy. I really actually loved both The Graham Effect and The Dixon Rule, but I think I love this one just a little bit more. It's roommates, it's hate to love, and it is so good, and she's dealing with a very dangerous ex who is abusive, and so she is though someone who does not ask for help. She's like, I can take care of it. She keeps a lot to herself, and the hero is so smitten with her, and I love this so much, and the setup for the next book, I'm dead. I'm so excited. We are gonna see Catherine Cowles on here quite a bit. I fell in love with her 2 or 3 years ago and have been obsessed ever since. So I've read her entire backlist, and she released 4 books this year, and I have read 5 of them because her new book comes out on the 7th of January, so just in a week, and I got to read an arc of it. So the 2 on my honorable mentions are going to be Delicate Escape and Broken Harbor. These are books 2 and 3 in the Sparrow Falls series. They are small town romantic suspense. Delicate Escape is our heroine running from an abusive relationship relationship. She finally got out of it and she is very scared and very hesitant to let anybody in, and the hero Shep is very golden retriever. He works in construction and he comes around a lot to help and falls for her. And then Delicate Escape is a single mom with a hockey player in a small town. So he is a big shot hockey player in Seattle, comes home to a small town to coach the kids' hockey team. Her son plays hockey and it is amazing. It's so good. Love it. She owns a bakery. She works for a nursery, like a flower nursery. So good. Not the last of Catherine on this list either. She is amazing. Then we have Asking for Trouble by Gianna Darling. This is book 7 in the Fallen Men series. I have loved the Fallen Men all the way back to like 2018, 2019 when her books were on my top of the year as well. She took a little bit of time off from publishing, came back with a vengeance. I have another book by her on this list. Love this series. The Asking for Trouble though is motorcycle romance forbidden. She belongs to a rival motorcycle club and he is so obsessed, and he makes neon signs and will like leave them everywhere for her to find, to know that he's thinking about her. It is amazing. Love it so much. And then the last one on my honorable mentions is a new to me author, and that is Bourbon and Secrets by Victoria Wilder. Honestly, I could have done Bourbon and Lies or Bourbon and Secrets. They are both amazing. They are small town romance, romantic suspense. We catch a theme here. I love suspense. I have quite a few more suspense on here. Not as much small town, I will say. I feel like I'm kind of moving away from small town as a whole, and I just love the dark nature that the suspense brings. So love this one. She's a burlesque dancer. She had lived in town and then pretty much ran away but was forced to leave, and she's a private investigator now, and she is back in town investigating a case, and the hero lives across the way from her and she's living with her sister who despises her for leaving, and the hero has girls. He's a single dad and he wears glasses and it's amazing. And yeah, the ending is crazy. There's lots of suspense in here. Love this series. Covers are stunning. I feel like these covers took social media by storm. They're stunning. This illustrator is just going to do amazing things in 2025. I know for sure, but love this. Okay, that was 9. I'm missing one. Hold on. Oh, okay. This one I don't own, but it is Killer of Mine by Alexis Grace. This is a Why Choose romantic suspense. So she is the daughter of a serial killer, and she decides to try to become an FBI agent to take down her serial killer father, who she ran away from a few years ago. And so she starts asking questions at this seminar that these FBI agents are putting on, and they're like, you are raising some red flags. So they take her in and ask her questions and realize she's related to him, and they are FBI agents, and she falls for all of them. I don't remember how many there are. It's been a bit since I've read this, but the author is coming out with book 2 soon, and I'm so excited. It's recently on audio as well. So if you're looking for a new Why Choose author, read this one. It is so good. Okay, now we are in my top 10. I don't even know where to start. I will say this reading year, there's nothing that absolutely became my personality, I feel like. So like the year before, it was Manacled, and I feel like there have been years where this book has been like #1, I'm obsessed. Like, I can't stop thinking about it. And while I absolutely love these books, nothing became my personality. So I need to do better at really picking up books that I'm super excited for in 2025 that could do that. But I do think that some fantasy did that this year, but I had a completely different video of my top fantasy, so none of these are fantasy. If you're interested in my top fantasy / romance, because they're all fantasy romance, go ahead and check out that video. I will leave a link down below, but these are just my top romances. So I'm just gonna go in the order they are in my graphic that I'm posting to Instagram, which it's always linked down below. So the first one is going to be one that I really haven't talked about a lot this year, but when I looked at like my reading as a whole, I was like, this book made me feel so many things. And that is going to be Serpentine Valentine by Gianna Darling. This is a sapphic romance. It's a revenge story. Our heroine is brutally assaulted and sexually assaulted by a really beloved professor on campus, and she is very driven, very smart. It's very dark academia, and nobody believes her. And those who do believe her don't want it to come out. They want to brush it under the rug. So the president of the university basically wants to kick her out, and she threatens them and says, you kick me out, I'm going to sue. So they let her stay on campus, but nothing happens. So she creates this man-eater crew of women who basically go around campus and get revenge on men who wrong women. It is amazing, and she is still mad though at the president of the university. So she decides to seduce her daughter in order to get revenge, and her daughter is the good girl dating the golden boy on campus and is intrigued by our heroine, and they start a romance. And the good girl daughter has never thought that she was bisexual. She always thought she was straight, so it's a bisexual awakening story, and so good. And we have Gianna's lyrical writing in here that I absolutely loved, so this one, stunning. Definitely a top favorite of the year, though I don't talk about it as much. Just reflecting on how I felt about these books, like this one for sure is a top read for me. Then this next one, I just vividly remember my feelings reading it, and that is going to be Unsteady by Peyton Corinne. This one is just so good. I forgot I even bought the new copy of it. I read it back when it was still indie in February, and I'm so excited for book 2 to come out in next February. I believe it's coming out in February. But our hero got into an accident on the ice, and he has a lot of trauma over what happened, and he's having a really hard time skating again. He is a hockey player, and so he goes to the rink early, but the heroine is a figure skater, and she also goes to the rink early, finds him in the middle of a panic attack, and really helps him through it, and she tells him she's gonna help him get back on the ice. And so it is their romance, and it is so good. Like, I remember reading this and absolutely loving it, and I, again, don't talk about this a lot because it kind of was one that was like, oh my god, it was so good, and then I kind of just moved on. But reflecting on it, I was like, this just made me feel so many feelings while reading it, and I love how the hero was working through his PTSD over his accident, and the heroine was dealing with a lot at home, and I just love this so much. It really reminds me of Little Lies by Helena Hunting. Very different dynamic in the romance, but like all of the external plot was really similar, and I love that book. That was one of my favorite books, I believe, of last year, if I remember, or the year before, whichever year I read it. One of my favorites. So kind of giving me those kind of feelings. Unsteady was just so good. So it's making the top list. This is the year I was determined to read more Nora Roberts. So my book club on Patreon, we read a Nora Roberts book a month, and my absolute favorite that made this list is The Search. Like I said, I love romantic suspense, and so this one is a romantic suspense, but we have a dog trainer. We have Nora and her dogs on the back of this one. So the heroine, it deals with a serial killer, and my favorite romantic suspense books deal with serial killers. The heroine was kidnapped by a serial killer and was his only victim to escape, and so he's mad. He didn't get caught. He's mad, so he goes and murders her fiance and his dog, and so she is horrified. He gets thrown in prison, like he gets caught, taken to jail, and she is now living on this small island, and she trains dogs. And the hero is a furniture maker who lives on the island now, and he adopts a puppy who is just horrific. It's a lot, and he calls the dog Jaws. He's like, I need help, and so he approaches her, and he is like, can you train my dog? I will literally pay you $1 million to train this dog because it's driving me nuts. And she doesn't take $1 million, but she agrees to train the dog, and they slowly start falling in love, and then someone is murdering women the same way her serial killer did, and they're like, he's in prison. Is this a copycat killer? Did they get the wrong guy? What's happening? And so there's a lot of suspense in here where you're just anxious about like, okay, when is this guy coming? And how are they gonna like survive? This is a romance. Like every Nora book ends with an HEA that I've read, but you're just like, what, how are they gonna survive? Like what is gonna happen? And I loved it. I love the dog training. I love the killer. I love the romantic suspense. Everything about this was so perfect. My #1 favorite Nora Roberts book ever. Loved it. Read it, please. Absolutely a top of the year. Then we have our next Catherine Cowles book, which is Fragile Sanctuary. This is the first book in her Sparrow Falls series, and I love this book. One of my absolute favorites from her, even though it was her second release this year. This one is about a FBI profiler. And he's an ex-profiler because of a case he had with a serial killer that absolutely traumatized him, and he refuses to work there again. And what happens is he is now a broody contractor in this small town, and he's a fire expert. And so our heroine, her entire family passed away when she was younger from a fire, and so she's adopted by her best friend, and it is the Coulson family, which is the whole series revolves around this family, either from adopted or fostered or biological children to their mother Nora and their grandmother Lolly. And it's just this big found family, which I love in this series. And in this one, she is now deciding to renovate her family's house from when it burned down, and the minute they meet, it is her adoptive brother's best friend. I don't remember who's adopted, fostered, biological, but it is her brother, basically, and it is his best friend, and they work together, and he's like, hey, like, my friend is a fire expert, like, he'll help rebuild, like, from all the smoke damage, fire damage, whatever. And so they meet and immediately butt heads, do not get along, and it is their romance. And then we have a serial killer coming back in the picture that Anson has a past with, and it is amazing, phenomenal. It was recently republished last month with these gorgeous sprayed edges. It is now in bookstores, so please Please go read this. Amazing, my favorite, obsessed. Love it so much. Then I have The Devil in the Deep Blue Sea. I always say the title wrong, but I actually got it right. By Elizabeth O'Rourke. This one is so angsty. I literally vividly remember staying up all night reading this. So the heroine's a pop star, and she has nobody who really like cares about her interests. She's just moved around and used to make the most money. And so was dating another musician, and they aren't dating anymore, but he's like, can you please come on this vacation with my family? He's like, my mom's dying of cancer. My whole family's gonna be there. Just please come. So she agrees. They go to Hawaii. He though gets stuck in a foreign country because he has drugs in his bag. And I think it's like weed or something. And so he gets detained. And so now she's stuck with his family, including his older brother, who hates her. He is so grumpy. He is actually a doctor in a war-torn country, and so he gets to get some leave and goes on vacation with them, and they do not get along. He really does not like her, but slowly he starts to like her, and the family is kind of addressing the fact that the mom is dying, and they fall in love, even though they are absolutely not supposed to. They fall in love, and it is so good. Like, she's going back to like her international pop stardom. He's going back to his job as a doctor, and he doesn't want to leave, and she can't. It will not work. Like, it is a situation where it's the right person, the wrong time, but it does have an HEA. I love this book so much. Like I said, stayed up all night reading it. Obsessed. And the next one I think I see on every single person's top list for good reason, and that is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. If you want a man who is the definition of if he could, he would, you have to read this book. This one is about our heroine who is a travel nurse, and she meets the hero on Reddit. He posts that he is the person who dates everybody, and as soon as they break up with him, they find the one. He's like, I'm cursed. I'm never gonna find the one. Everybody who dates me finds it after me. She experiences the same exact thing. So she decides to contact him, and she's like, hey, this happens to me too. And they're like, you know what we should do? We should date each other, break the curse, and we'll go find our one true love after dating each other. So she decides to get a placement in his city and meets him, and they start dating, and they fall in love with each other. And it is so amazing and so good. I was swooning the entire time I listened to this audiobook. I was obsessed. Like, the hero is just so swoon worthy and really, really, really likes her. And the heroine's dealing a lot. She has a lot going on with her mom, and he just wants to be with her. And it's so cute. Like, their dates, he's like, actually wanted it to last longer because like I didn't want to not be with you. Swooning the entire time. Love this. Obsessed. Worth every single hype it gets. Then I have another author that's hyped, but I finally read this book. It is Happy Place by Emily Henry. I loved this. I was nervous because when I had read Emily Henry, I read Beach Read and I loved it. But then I read People We Meet on Vacation. I didn't love it. Then I read Book Lovers and I didn't love it. And I'm like, oh gosh. So then I didn't read Happy Place when it came out. But I read Funny Story. I loved it. Then I read this. As someone who loves angst, this is a second chance romance where they broke up but don't tell anybody. And all of their friends think they're still together, and they have to go on their friend vacation that they go on together. And everybody thinks they're still together, but they broke up. And so they decide to continue acting like they're together because they're there to celebrate their friends who, I believe they were getting married on the trip. They were engaged. So they have to celebrate these friends. So they have to share a room, and they have to really confront what went wrong. And Emily Henry just writes like such sweeping romances. Like, they are just so in love with each other and don't know how to deal with it. This was amazing. I was obsessed. It takes place at a lake, and it's just so atmospheric, and I love the characters she writes and the romance she writes. They're amazing. I love this. Obviously, they fall back in love. It's a romance, but so good. Then I have my fourth Catherine Cowles book on this list, second on the top 10, and that is All the Missing Pieces. This one, if you love suspense, this one is the most suspense of her books because the heroine is actually a true crime podcaster. This releases on January 7th in this gorgeous like sprayed edges, and it has like some gloss on the cover with, I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but like the title is glossy. But this one is about our heroine who is a true crime podcaster, and she has spent her life dedicated to solving crimes and interviewing victims, going to towns, and trying to figure out cold cases. And so she's finally addressing a cold case that could be connected to her sister who went missing years ago. So when she was in college, her twin sister went missing, has never been found. And so she believes she has found the first victim of the person who took her sister because she thinks that her sister was taken by a serial killer. So she arrives in town, and she is not given a warm welcome. They are a very tight-knit community. They protect the people in their town, and the person that is in the town is the first victim of the serial killer is a alive. And so the town has been very protective of that person and does not want anybody digging up things to really bring back the trauma that the town experienced. And so they don't want her there, especially the town sheriff, who is our hero. They fall in love, but he is definitely like, you are just stirring up trouble, get out of my town, you're just making people upset. And she is determined to take the situation very delicately and really delve into these people, what happened in the case, and it is amazing. It is so good. Obviously they figure out the killer, obviously fall in love. Amazing. He becomes so protective of her too, which I love. So good. Every single one of her books, I never see the twist coming. Like, I never guess who the culprit is ever. In this one, mind-blowing. So good. Then I have Curvy Girl Summer by Danielle Allen. This one took me by surprise. I love Danielle Allen's books, but I didn't expect like the tension and angst in this couple to absolutely like make me kick my feet and giggle. So this one, our heroine in the beginning, she has a birthday coming up and she tells her family that she has a boyfriend she's bringing to her birthday party, and she doesn't. So she decides to spend the weeks leading up to her birthday going on a new date every week to find someone to bring to her birthday party. And it's a lot of strikeouts when she goes on these dates, but she befriends the bartender because she goes to the same place every time and he's like, what are you doing? And she thinks that he's married because he wears a wedding ring. He's not. It's a very sad reason why he does wear a wedding ring. I don't want to spoil anything, but he is really into her and she thinks that he is taken and off the market, but they are definitely both falling for each other. So we have that angst there, and oh my gosh, the scene where like they finally give into their attraction literally had me kicking my feet and giggling. I was like, these people are so meant to be, and like finally they're giving into this chemistry between them. I was obsessed and it was amazing. I loved it so much. I'm so excited for the next book in the series. Danielle Allen is forever a favorite author of mine, and this one was just another hit from her. Amazing. Then one of my most recent reads, Lights Out by Nevessa Allen, is everything and more. I listened to this on audio and I flew through it. I listened to it in like 1 or 2 days, could not stop reading it. This is a darker romance, but it had this suspense that I was obsessed with. Like, again, hello, I love suspense. So in this one, our heroine is a trauma nurse. So she is just really dedicated to her job to the point where it's like exhaustion. She is not taking care of herself, but the hero, he is a masked man on basically their version of TikTok. So he does like thirst trap videos, and the heroine is like his biggest fan. She watches his video, saves them, responds to them, really likes them. And so he realizes who she is. She is actually was hooking up with his roommate. So she one night texts this guy and she's like, hey, would you ever be into this? Because she's like, I haven't, you know, had sex in a while. Let me see if my old hookup like wants to hook up. And so she texts him and he's like, hey, like I'm kind of in a situationship over here. Like, no thanks. And he shows his roommate. He's like, hey, look at what this girl just sent me. He has no idea he does. That's his roommate. He has no idea. And his roommate is like, what is this? What are you talking about? It's him. He becomes intrigued by this girl. And when I say intrigued, I mean obsessed. He hacks into her security system. He puts cameras in her house. He films a video in her room. Like, this all happens at the very beginning. And he basically is obsessed with her. And she comes home and she's like, someone's been here. And he's like, yep, it's me. And so like he never like stalks her without her knowing for very long. And she's super into it. Like, she likes the masked man fantasy. She likes to feel like she is being watched. And so it feeds into her fantasy. There's some like consent, not consent happening. Like, she likes it when it happens and they agree. Like, if she ever says stop, if it ever gets too much, like they'll stop. But super spicy. And then we have suspense in here. Like, something happens and then like her mafia cousins come in to like help, and I was like, this is amazing. Like, this is so fun, so addicting. I'm so hooked, obsessed. So obsessed. Love it. If you haven't yet read this, please do. And then very much the opposite of that, I have Business Casual by BK Borison. I love BK Borison. I feel like every year I have one of her books on my top of the year list. This one is her newest release, and it was Everything and More. This is Nova and Charlie's story. Nova is just such a cool heroine. She's a tattoo artist, and it's Beckett's sister, and Beckett is from my favorite book of the series. I love him so much, so we do see a lot of him. And in this one, she is opening her own tattoo studio, but she's really nervous that she's gonna fail everybody because Beckett gave a lot for her to be able to open this studio. So she's very nervous, and she's very much the black cat energy. Charlie is very golden retriever. He is someone who everybody loves. He has this great job in the big city, but he's constantly coming back to their small town. So he's in town for a wedding, and Nova is kind of like, hey, why don't we hook up? And he is like he is shocked, and she's like, oh my god, never mind, I didn't ask. And he's like, no, Yes, please. So they hook up and they kind of start this friends with benefits situation, but Charlie is falling so head over heels for her, and Nova is definitely falling for him too, and I love their dynamic. I love this town. I love these characters. I love everything about this series. This final book was just perfection. I was obsessed, could not stop thinking about it. Please read this series and get to this final book. I think I still love book 2 the best because that's Beckett's story and he's just perfection, but this one is a close second. I loved it. And the last one I have, I think, is on so many people's list, and that's Wild Eyes. Either Wild Love or Wild Eyes. I think I loved Wild Eyes a little bit better than Wild Love just because this hero is so fun. So this is I don't even know what to call it. It's Forced Proximity. She is a musician and she is in town to record music with his best friend who had book 1. He has a recording studio. And so he does not have his like cabins ready for people who stay to record music. So she has to stay in kind of like the bunkhouse on the hero's farm. And he's a single dad. He is divorced and he has a really good relationship with his wife, but he is someone who thrives on energy and people. And so when his kids aren't around, he feels lost and he's really sad when his kids aren't around. And so the heroine and him really connect and they kind of really push each other's buttons. They have a lot of fun together. The heroine's kind of feeling lost too and always having to feel like she has to be on for social media and all these people judging her. I really connected with her in that sense, especially as someone like myself who's on social media a ton and like putting myself out there as well. So I just love these characters so much. The kids, adorable. Like the son doesn't really take to new people very well and like instantly loved her, and they just had like really fun conversations, and the daughter was so adorable too. I loved them all. I love this book and it takes place on a ranch. I love this so much. So much. I love the series. Cannot wait for book 3 this year. I am imagining it's going to be on so many people's favorites as well. Elsie Silver just can do no wrong. And those were my favorite books of 2024. That was a very long video. I am so sorry, but let me know if you've read any of these and what your top books of the year are. I would love to hear. If you made it this far, leave me a flower emoji. Any flower you want, leave it in the comments down below, and that's all I have. As always, thank you so much for watching and have a good day.